All right, folks. Welcome once again here to our YouTube show, the recruiting show. Me and C-Mac here are ready to do our thing. Are you excited about this, Christian?
I'm always excited to spend time with you, Mike.
Yeah, whatever. You are. I mean, I have to say,
I'm true.
I know. We get along great. We always have, and so I can't say enough about how much I love C-Mac. He's the man. So, all right, let's. So we're going to talk today: tight ends, O line, and D line. And one thing that on the last show I probably should have dove deeper into, Christian, was kind of who we have coming in this current class. And as I've done in the past, I always like to look at a couple different classes together because you have different types of players that you're adding. So let's start with, say, tight end. Jack Larson is kind of a move tight end, right? He's a guy that's going to move quite a bit. You're not going to have him in line and that type of thing. And when you look at the tight ends they have with Stays and Eli Raridan, Eli's probably going to get big enough to be kind of an inline tight end. I think Holden may as well at some point. If you watch their blocking recently, they're going to need to improve there for sure. So you're kind of looking for some bigger tight ends here. Unfortunately, we've, as you reported in our intel recently, Carter Nelson probably not looking like it's going to happen, at least at this particular point. So you have to kind of look at some bigger guys, and Notre Dame already has. Let's start with James Flanigan here. There's not a ton of film of Flanigan, but this guy's going to be, I think, a pretty good player. The thing that I like about him, certainly he has a pedigree, and his dad was one mean, nasty player. And when you watch this kid play, he's also a mean, nasty player. We're not going to see a lot of film of him on defense, I don't believe, on this clips that we have. It's mostly tight end. But when you watch him play defense, this is a kid who wants to hurt somebody. But the thing is, he's just a heck of an athlete, too. And, I know that he doesn't go against the best competition and that type of thing. But when you watch him, this guy can really move. He's not 6'6" like Eli Raridan, but I would say he's kind of on par with the overall athleticism. You see there, definitely a willing blocker, somebody who wants to get in there and do some stuff and pound some people. And so I think that this guy was a really good pickup for Notre Dame in this particular class. And I think it's going to be important for them to land somebody that's kind of bigger. And so we'll get on to Linkon Cure here in a minute. But when I look at this guy, I see a guy in Flanigan who's just going to get better and better as his body fills out. But I think he's a plus athlete. I think he's a better athlete than people give him credit for. And I think he's going to be a tremendous player when it's all said and done. But he's a guy that's going to take some time. The good news is you got a lot of guys on the roster now who are playing. And so he doesn't need to be ready to go immediately. So you can get him to develop, and of course, let's be honest here. This is sophomore film, correct, Chris?
Yes.
So I mean, we haven't even seen how he's grown as a junior at this point, and hopefully at some point we'll get some junior film, and we'll be checking that out and breaking that down as well. All right, let's move on to Linkon Cure. All right, so obviously this guy does not play the best competition. If people are not familiar with where he's from, it's way out western Kansas. And so this is not the best competition. He's always going to be the best athlete, the biggest guy on the field. But you just got to love this guy's length. And I think is it this play here where he chases down no, okay. There's another play.
Yeah, when he's on defense.
Yeah, and he chases a guy down. You can really see. But look at him just kind of blow by guys here. And then he, has the ability when he has the ball in his hands and he's running, he has the ability to make people miss. I mean, this guy, I think this is it. But you can definitely see how fast this guy is. I mean, this is a long haul, and he's chasing this guy down. Now, again, this is not the fastest guy. This guy probably runs about as fast as me or Christian, maybe. So it's not the fastest guy, but he had to come all the way from across the field to catch him, and certainly shows some ability here to make people miss in open space. I mean, look at that. You don't see guys that are that tall that have that kind of quick hips and the ability to turn left and right. Obviously, good solid release there, and then just turn and power and just run around. I mean, this is a guy that's very, very, very talented, highly, highly underrated. So, and I love his length. This guy's going to be a big-time player. I think he's going to be maybe a more athletic Mitchell Evans when it's all said and done. I see him playing probably, a good 265 at least, and be a very good inline blocker when it's all said and done because he'll have the body, but still has the kind of flexibility and explosiveness to be a vertical threat and somebody who can, you really have to reckon with. This is a type of player that continues along the lineage of what Notre Dame has had at tight end. So very excited about his potential. Chris, what can you tell us about him and what they liked about Flanigan?
So first of all, with Flanigan, we mentioned in our last show, we talked about, Jerome Bettis Jr. and about how important it was for Notre Dame to land legacy prospects. Well, that conversation I had with a source about that was really about Flanigan, and it was about, like I said, true Power 5 guys whose fathers played at Notre Dame. They feel like they need to be they need to land those guys. And Flanigan's a guy there's no doubt he's a true Power 5 guy. I mean, it was Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, Stanford, were his schools. And they really, really like him. You talked about, his potential. He's another guy, like you mentioned, Mike, he's the kind of guy that's going to reach his potential because of his makeup. Being from his father, that lineage, and also just the kid himself. So they see Flanigan getting up to about 270, being an elite blocker, and also helping out in the run, in the pass game. Yeah. As far as Cure goes, when you're one, Mike, that always talks about the importance of a recruiting department and kind of the guys behind the scenes that don't get all the attention and stuff. Sure. I think this is an example of that for Notre Dame. The recruiting staffers in the background discovered him. I believe it was Caleb Davis that actually found Linkon, or at least elevated him on the board. The rest of the staff, their initial impressions were excitement. They're looking at what you were just breaking down, getting excited about him. And then they got him on campus last month for a visit, and they wanted to see what he was like as a kid, what his family was like. And they absolutely loved him, right? So they loved the kid, loved the family, like absolute home run. They were already very, very intrigued and excited by him. And now they're just really in love with him. And, like you said, he's underrated, but I don't think that's going to last very long. I don't think he's going to be underrated for long. He's already taken visits to Penn State. He was at Oregon last week. And this is all coming at the kid and the family so fast. He got some Power 5 offers earlier, but like not this level. And it's just like, wow, it's taken the family kind of aback, and they're just like really enjoying it, but also understanding that it's going to be a stressful decision in the end. But Notre Dame is one of those, the same way the Notre Dame loved the kid and the family. It's the same, it's kind of a mutual feeling there. And one person told me that it seems like Linkon Cure and Notre Dame fit like a glove. So, he's a guy that I expect them to be in the running with till the end, and someone that I probably get back to Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important to get him back for a junior day, see what happens with him as more of these teams try and get in touch with him and get going with him, recruiting wise. But, this guy I think is easily Carter Nelson good, if not better, certainly. I think Carter Nelson's a great athlete, but I think this guy's a better, more polished tight end at this point. And so I'm excited to see what I think you put him and Flanigan and Jack Larson together, and that's some pretty darn good players, and you got to be excited about that. All right, let's move on to offensive line. And this has been kind of fun. And Yaman and I have been talking on Power Hour about, I just think that Notre Dame needs to start getting some guys at offensive line that just want to hurt somebody, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, guys who really want to hurt somebody. And I'm starting to see that, and I'm excited about that. When you look at Notre Dame's current, commitment list right now, you got a guy like Peter Jones, very physical player, can play guard, can play tackle. I think he's more of a right tackle guard prospect. But, this guy, if he's going to be guard, he's going to be a guy who can move really well. And already has the size, but also has that kind of nasty disposition about him. And then you look at a guy like Anthony Knapp, and here's another guy that I really like. When you watch his junior film, which Chris and I were talking about, we're going to start trying to get some more updated film from some of the players, as far as the 2024 commits and some of these 2025, try and track down some of their latest film and go over that kind of one by one, or maybe a couple during the show type of thing moving forward after we get through these lists that we're putting together here for the 2025 guys. But when you see Knapp, I mean, this guy is a very, very athletic player. Also, somebody who very, very good first step right off the ball, fires off the ball, always kind of the first guy off the ball. Love his ability to move. And again, he could play guard or he could play tackle. You know, tackle is going to depend. Well, both of them are going to depend on how big he gets, because that's really the only knock on him right now is how big is he going to get? 270, does he come in at 275, 280? What are you looking for here? And he's a guy that's going to take some time. The good news is they got some young guys that are big and can play in front of him. But I really like his potential, and I think he's a guy, year 2, year 3 at Notre Dame could be a really impressive player just because of his foot speed and his ability to move out in space. Gerby Lambert, Chris will tell you, I was a little bit concerned about, does Gerby have what you're looking for as far as meanness and tenacity and wanting to hurt somebody and just the physical play that you're looking for. And I didn't see a lot of it in his sophomore film, but we did get the one game, I think it was, recently that showed. And I'm telling you, man, this guy really impressed me with his ability to go after people. And man, I mean, I don't know if I've seen a guy that has come in with his size and his ability to move like he has. I mean, he is just like a dancing bear, this guy. I mean, he just can really move. And it's funny because Chris and I would be talking and we're talking to various sources about Gerby, and people would say, no, definite 5-star NFL first-round talent type of guy. They'd tell us this all the time. We're like, I don't know about that. And then you start watching, you're like, okay, oh, yeah, I see that. That's definitely the case. Styles Prescott, another guy who could play left tackle and already has a big body as is. I'm very interested to see his film and see how he's developed as a player. But, when you look at these guys, Notre Dame got a lot of guys who can play tackle in this last class. They got 2 guys for sure who could play left tackle. Even Anthony Knapp could potentially, because of his foot speed, play left tackle. And they got some guys with some good size. Prescott's already pretty good size. Lambert's already big. Peter Jones is massive. So they got guys with size. And so now what you want to get is some tough guys that can play guard, but could potentially play tackle as well. But some tough guys. And so when you watch Notre Dame's offensive line targets, and we're only going to look at 3 today because as of right now, I think Notre Dame's in really good shape with all 3 of these guys. And the number we've heard is 3 that they're going to take. And I think Notre Dame wants to see what happens with these guys because they really like them. They're still recruiting other guys. But I think that these are probably the top 3 at this point based off of things we've heard and just digging. Who do you got up first, Chris?
Matty Augustine.
Okay, we got Matty Augustine. Okay, let's get this guy up here and take a look at him. All right. So when I watch this guy right there, good play. The ability to get out in space and make guys, again, you got to be able to shuffle your feet. You got to be able to get out there in space. And he plays left tackle. I think he's probably got the foot speed to do that, but I think probably more right tackle would be his game. The one thing I'll say about him is I want to see him stay on his blocks a little bit longer sometimes. I mean, you can just tell this guy's got the ability to be a really good player, but I'd like to see him sustain his blocks a little bit more. I like seeing that, push some guys a little bit after the play. I like that. You know me, I like those types of things. Those are the types of players that I want to see when I'm watching film. Get that extra shot in. It shows me you're a tough guy. Shows me that you're here. It's going to be a long day. But again, that kind of ability to move in space, like that play right there, a lot of guys don't have the foot speed to kind of get out there and do that. Here's a guy that's just as big as him, and look at him set there and then reset right here, right? This is a guy that's got strength, and you can tell he's well coached. He's got some ability. I'd like to see him bend a little bit better sometimes when he's doing this because that'll help him get under his feet and play with a little more leverage. But overall, you can see why a lot of teams like this guy and his ability to move and his size. He's got really good size already. And you got to remember, this guy's only a junior. This is sophomore film, correct?
This is junior. This is junior film.
Okay. All right. So obviously this guy's gonna grow and get bigger and bigger, but you can just tell by his body, he's gonna be a massive guy, probably 330, I would guess, when it's all said and done. You can see his lower body isn't as thick as some of the offensive linemen you'll see, but again, loves to play with power. Really like this guy's potential. I think he's going to be a really good player.
All right. Yeah, you talked about his coaching. His coach at Brunswick, Wayne McGillicuddy, head coach, is also an offensive line background, so he's done a great job with him. This game at Avon, I was at this game. It was literally the most miserable football watching experience of my life. It was cold, rainy. I made an hour and a half drive home with the heat up all the way, and I was freezing cold when I got home still.
He's such a whiner, that McCollum.
It was the worst experience ever.
What a whiner.
But I was I can't believe it doesn't show how much it was raining. I was so impressed with Matty, right? I got to know Matty. I got to know him this offseason. He was in South Bend for the big man's camp. I was out there, met him then, met up with him at another camp in Massachusetts over the summer. And then spent some time with him at Brunswick. So I've spent extended periods of time with Matty before getting a chance to see him and play in person. And, he's the most mature, nice young man. He's huge. He's a giant. But he's such a mature guy. I knew he'd be kind of nasty on the field, but when I went to this Avon game, he was going at it, the whole game. You see it there. He is way nastier on the field than you'd ever imagine. And it matters to him. They lost this game, and he was very visibly upset afterwards. But like you said, he's athletic. He's a former basketball player, right? He's an AAU basketball guy. Yeah. He reclassed when football became the thing, and he's really taken off. And you can just see it in his offer list. Complete Notre Dame fit. Checks every box. I think Notre Dame is probably the leader at this point. Probably them in Michigan. But if I had to guess right now, I think he's Notre Dame's to lose.
I sure hope so, because I do like his talent. I think he's a really good player. Who we got next?
Will Black.
All right. See now I love Will Black. I love him. First of all, name the last guy who wore number 60 by choice as an offensive lineman, right? It just doesn't happen. That's not a very popular number. I like guys who choose weird numbers. And the reason why is they want to stand out. They want to be, they want to be guys that they're not looking to be the most, grandstanding types of guys. And when you watch Will Black, this is sophomore film, correct?
Yeah, this is sophomore film. This is up in Canada. Look at them goalposts. Jamie and those guys up there, they had the great idea to put goalposts right in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I don't know what the heck those guys are thinking, but I'm telling you, this guy wants to hurt people. I mean, he wants to hurt people, and I love guys who want to hurt people. And if you watch him now, see, that's probably a hold. That's all right. There's some holds that go on here with Will Black. There's no doubt about it. But the Will Black is the type of player. Like, look at this. He gets up, and then he wants to tell you about it, right? He's going to pancake you, and then he wants to tell you about it, all right? I love guys that play this way because they're guys that are going to be there all day long, and they're here to tell you it's going to be a long-ass day when you're playing against me. And every time I put you on your ass, I'm going to stand above you, and I'm going to tell you about it. And that's what he does this whole entire film. And there is a lot of film of him doing this. Every single play is a pancake like that, and then he gets on top of him and it pushes him while he's getting up. I love it. I love these types of players. The only thing we don't have, look at that, just throws that guy like a rag doll and then wants to stand up in front of him and tell him this. So what we don't have here is a whole lot of pass blocking. So that's the one negative of what we've seen here, kind of a Sam Pendleton type of situation where he's got the body, he's got the nastiness, he wants to hurt people, but can he pass block? I think there's only like 2 or 3 in the entire film. I don't know if because we didn't use the whole film, we only have the ability to use so many clips because there's obviously we won't be talking about him for that long, but there's not a lot to see here as a pass blocker, but what you love is his size. You love his ability to move, and you love his nasty and tenacity, and he just wants to hurt people. What do you know about Will Black?
Yeah, so I'm hoping that when we get his junior film, I'm hoping there'll be a little bit more pass blocking on there because he's at Choate now in Connecticut. Came down to the States, and the big question was how's he going to transition? I spent some time with his head coach at Choate, LJ Spinato, and you could just tell LJ was just basically just drooling about the prospect of being able to get this guy. And he said, you never know how they're going to transition. All guys are different, but you could tell he was real confident that Will was going to make the transition well. And all indications are that he's done so. So hopefully when we get that junior film, we'll see more of that. But I was told from the start, this is likely just like Augustine, but even kind of more so. This is going to be a Notre Dame-Michigan battle. Penn State's working their way in there. I think Alabama's trying. I wouldn't be surprised to see him visit Alabama before the process is over. But everything I'm told, Notre Dame and Michigan are the places that really, really fit what he's looking for, and going to a place like Choate kind of, reinforces that. So, Michigan, he didn't go anywhere this fall. He's one of those New England prep school kids who has all his games on Saturdays, and they didn't have any bye weeks once they started going. So he's going to go to the Michigan-Ohio State game next week. It was his only off week. So, but he's already visited Notre Dame, camped at Notre Dame. That's where he got the offer. And I would expect him to get back to Notre Dame at some point this offseason. And I think Notre Dame has just as good a shot with him as they do with Augustine.
I sure hope so, because, again, I think that this is the type of guy you're looking for, and they need some guards that have some nastiness, and he can be that kind of player for Notre Dame and maybe able to play tackle as well. Until you see the pass blocking stuff, it's just really hard to say. But I love his ability. I love his potential. I think he's going to be a really good player. It's just going to take a little bit of time, but you can't teach what he has. And I'd say he has it as much as anybody that they've signed in quite some time. So hopefully they can land him. All right. Moving on to Owen Strebig.
Yeah, Strebig.
Okay. Okay, first of all, that first play there shows his ability to just move and get down the field. This guy's a massive guy. He is going to be a huge, huge player when it's all said and done. I mean, this guy definitely looks like a Mike McGlinchey type, but I'd say he's even more athletic than McGlinchey. I really think so. And another guy who wants to hurt people. And obviously Wisconsin produces a lot of these types of players, and they usually go to Wisconsin, but I think in Strebig's case, Notre Dame's got a really good shot at him and wants to beat it. But again, playing those combo blocks like that's not easy for a lot of high school guys to get, is to be able to get, those combo blocks where you have to come off your man and go find your next man. And you see that a lot in his film where he's out there doing that type of thing. Again, see him pushing guys way downfield. There's another nice combo block where you're going to have to get the next guy. Here's some pass sets. Guy can't even get close to him. Just moves very well for a guy his size. And I think he's going to get even more athletic. Like to see him bend a little bit more. It's hard to do for guys that are that size, to get that kind of bend. But again, nice pass set there. The ability, strength to just throw guys around like a rag doll. So love this guy. I think a lot of people have been hoping he'd commit soon, and maybe that happens sometime soon. I don't know. But I love this guy. I can see why he's very, very high on Notre Dame's board. Your thoughts?
Yeah, one of those guys that visited Notre Dame multiple times this year that obviously leads itself to believe he's serious about Notre Dame, right? He was at the Ohio State game, then he came back for the USC game. And I know a lot of people thought, maybe he'd be on commit watch the last time he got up there. But, I'd been told by him specifically, he was going to take all his visits. He was going to, and he has the last visit he's taken is to USC at the end of the year. He was very adamant about the fact that he wouldn't make a decision before that. But he was at the USC game and he saw what Notre Dame did to USC. It's going to be hard for USC to come back from that. So at this point, I feel good about Augustine. I feel good about Black. I feel best about Strebig, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the key. And again, like I said, if you can finish with Augustine, Black, and Strebig, you're going to be in good shape because they fit really well with what you've got in this current class of Peter Jones, Anthony Knapp, Kirby Lambert, and Styles Prescott. Those guys complement what you're looking for. So I think that's going to be a very good thing for Notre Dame if they can land those guys. All right.
And one thing, I like you said, those three, the target numbers 3, these guys have been at the top of the board for quite some time now. But like you mentioned, Notre Dame is recruiting other guys. They like other guys. They've offered other guys. One guy that came in recently that I think they really like is Jack Lang. keep an eye out. He might be a guy that eventually, gets his name added to the board, whether it's, something changes with some of these other guys, or they decide that he's too good to take, or, however it may be. I wouldn't be surprised to see that board expand a little bit and more out of how much they like some of these other guys than necessity.
I think so. And to be honest with you, I think it's smart. I don't think you should just wait and hope that all three of these guys come. And we mentioned on the board, you got to have some plan B, because you don't know who's going to be there. You don't know who's going to transfer out. I mean, your number may be 3 at this point, but you just don't know. You also don't know, maybe Joe Rudolph gets a offensive coordinator position somewhere, or there's just a lot of things that could happen. So you want to make sure that you're continuing to recruit other players than these 3. And, I'd love to see that board expand as well. All right, moving on to.
Yeah, and while I feel good about I feel good about Augustine and Black. Like, by no means am I saying those guys are locks. Like, Will Black could easily choose Michigan.
Sure.
So, those guys are not locks to go to Notre Dame just because Notre Dame's in a great position.
Well, and let's be honest. Michigan's doing well, whether people want to talk about it or not. And they have been, the Joe Moore Award winners here for a couple of years in a row too. So they've had a lot of success. It's going to be hard to recruit against Michigan at offensive line when they're doing as well as they have. So hopefully Notre Dame can lock these guys in. All right, moving on to D-line. We've mentioned the guys that are committed. Cole Mullins, I really like. I think he's a Viper for sure. But he has the kind of body that could grow into a strong side defensive end. But he has the ability to lean, the ability to bend, the length. And what I love about him more than anything is his tenacity. This guy gets after it every single play. We're not going to see a lot of junior film because he got hurt right away. And actually, we probably won't see any junior film now that I think about it. He was out all year, correct?
Yeah, you mean senior film.
Or senior film, yeah. He was out all year. So we won't be able to see much about how he's developed. And that kind of concerns me a little bit because Viper is going to be such an important position moving forward. Logan Thomas, we have seen a lot of his senior film. I like Logan Thomas. I think he's a great athlete, and he has the bend. But what I would like to see a little bit more from Logan Thomas is the tenacity that I saw in Cole Mullins' film, where it's every play, all day long, coming after it. And I think that's the next step for Logan Thomas, is just the same type of tenacity. But when you talk about his athletic ability, he's certainly a Viper. Love what I've seen in Bryce Young. Definitely a strong side defensive end. Could even grow into a defensive tackle like his dad. But this guy is just a tremendous talent. And I think he's just scratching the surface. I really think when it all said and done, this guy could have All-American potential when it's all said and done. It's going to be interesting to see what position he ends up, but he just keeps growing. He keeps getting bigger. And, is he going to end up being a Brennan Vernon where he just keeps getting bigger and eventually you have to move him inside? So we'll see what happens with that. But I love his potential. Great pass rush. Love his motor. Fantastic motor. And also same thing with Sean Sevillano. I mean, I can't wait to see his film because it sounded like he had another good year based off the stats that I've seen. Very disruptive player. A guy who's probably going to play nose guard, could play defensive tackle as well. Not the biggest guy, all right? He's, they say 6'2". I don't know if he's a legit 6'2". They say 300 pounds. I'm not sure he's a 300-pounder. I think he's going to get there, certainly. But I'm not sure he's going to be a guy who's like 320 when it's all said and done. So, to me, Nnamdi Agboko, I think, is a huge recruit for Notre Dame. They got to somehow land this guy because we watched in the Clemson game what a nose guard, a big, giant nose guard can do to a running game. And Notre Dame could not run at all. Their interior just got absolutely destroyed by the interior of Clemson's line. And they just had some big dudes in there. So Notre Dame hasn't landed a guy like Nnamdi in quite some time where, comes in at 320 already. Big body that's only going to get bigger and develop. He's already committed to Georgia. We'll see what happens there, whether Georgia over-recruits him and Notre Dame has a better option. That certainly may be the situation when it's all said and done. But I really think that this guy, for the future of the program, is very, very important. It's why Notre Dame wanted Justin Scott, but I think this guy plays harder than Justin Scott. Definitely. I don't think that he may not be as athletic as Justin Scott, but you don't need him to be a great pass rusher. You need him on first and second down to eat up offensive linemen, to protect your linebackers so they can play free and not have to worry about getting off blocks from guards and that type of thing. So that's why you need Nnamdi, and hopefully they'll have a shot. All right. So right now, Notre Dame has commitments from Davion Dixon, Joseph Reiff, and CJ May. Who are we going to start with here?
We can start with CJ May.
All right, let's start with CJ. This is junior film, correct?
Correct.
This is his latest film. Okay.
Yep.
So, here's the thing. This guy's got a lot of good offers, and you can see that he has the ability to run. He's very athletic, very long arms, right? And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a guy who has the long arms that can get out there, grab players, and just drag them down like that. The one thing I will say, doesn't play the best competition, Chris. Just not the best competition, and he should dominate that. He does most of the time when you watch his film. He dominates. I would like to see a little bit more explosiveness off the snap, and that I think is what he's missing at this point. If you watched a Gabe Kaminsky, watched his film, he's extremely explosive off the ball. He's also only 6'3", about 215 pounds, where certainly when you look at May, he's definitely thicker and bigger. So that's why Notre Dame went after him versus a guy like Kaminsky. But this guy certainly is just scratching the surface at this point. Very athletic player. I would love to see more pass rush out of him. We don't see a lot of film of just him dominating as a pass rusher. Well, that's going to be his job, right? We want to see that domination as a pass rusher over and over and over again. And that's what you see when you watch a Kaminsky film. But again, Kaminsky is smaller, not playing against great competition either. But literally every play, he's dominating. I want to see that from CJ May a little bit more. And I think he's the type, like a Logan Thomas, a guy just kind of scratching the surface of his potential, and certainly can be a very good player. What do you know about him?
Yeah, he's a guy, like you said, Mike. He came up and he visited. People want to think about Deuce Knight's impact. There's no way this kid's committed to Notre Dame right now if Deuce Knight isn't already committed to Notre Dame. And Notre Dame was surprised that he wanted to pull the trigger, but they're like, there ain't no way we can say no to this kid. Yeah. Like you said, he has all the measurables. He does have, he shows quick twitch ability. You just like to see it more consistently. Yeah. Sometimes it seems like his the defense asks him to be a little more patient, I think.
Yeah, it's a read kind of situational.
Yeah. So I think sometimes that kind of hides that, but he's a high ceiling kid, right? And I think that, he's an excitable kid. So I think, once he gets, the right coaching and the right, mentality, people in his ear, like Al Washington, those guys, I think he's more likely to reach that ceiling.
Yeah, I think so too, and we'll just see how his body develops and that type of thing. But it's just the measurables. He has everything that you're looking for: size and length, and the ability to bend and that type of thing. So, all right, who do we got next?
Davion Dixon.
All right, I love this guy too. I think this guy's a really good player.
This is junior year film.
Okay, all right. So again, this is a guy that very, very physical player. And a guy who's got the ability, just look at that, shedding that block right there. That's very hard to do. Very violent hands and the ability to get upfield and get after the quarterback. For somebody his size, you just don't see that consistently. But when you watch his film, it is consistent. He is always in the backfield. He's always getting upfield. He's always shedding blocks and always making plays behind the line of scrimmage. And just the ability to get physical and push guys back and use his strength, use his leverage, just kind of I'm going to blow up every play type of thing. He's not Howard Cross in that he's going to shoot tons of gaps and just physically, dominate somebody. That's just not his type of game. But what he is a very good run player, but also has the ability to kind of shed those blocks, get in the backfield, and make those types of plays. So I think he's going to be a really big pickup for Notre Dame when it's all said and done. When you throw him and Sevillano next to each other, I think you got two really good inside players there that have some athleticism and the ability to kind of make people miss and use their quickness to shoot some gaps, but also the size to hold up in the running game. So really like him. What do you know about him?
Yeah, he's a kid, like you said, Mike. Notre Dame's really high on him. They went after him right away. He obviously committed really, really early. There was some chatter going on that he might be soft, but I talked to people on all sides of it, and they're like, no. And especially the people closest to him are like, yeah, schools are still trying to come after him, but he's locked into Notre Dame. They understand the benefits of everything Notre Dame can offer, and he's really, really locked in.
All right, let's move on to Joseph.
Here we go, Joe Reiff. This is this year's highlights.
Okay, I love this guy, and what he is a quicker version of Brennan Vernon, all right? But just look at how he keeps his body so low, Chris. He keeps his butt really low and plays with great leverage, but he's also a violent player. And so I think I don't think this guy is going to be a strong side defensive end. I don't know if he's going to be as big as Vernon is, but just plays with great leverage, goes after, very physical player, but also has the quickness to be a good pass rusher and violent hands. So I definitely see strong side defensive end with him. I know he doesn't have some of the offers as some of the other, elite players that are out there. But when you watch his quickness and you watch his violence and his tenacity, he can get down the line of scrimmage in a hurry, and he's got such quick hands and get off the ball, but also has the ability to play low and play with leverage and be a really good run defender. So I think this guy's going to be a really talented player when it's all said and done, just growing into his body. And I'm really excited to see what happens with him because I think he's going to be a talented player for Notre Dame. Your thoughts and what do you know?
Yeah, he came to camp, worked out, earned the offer like immediately. And it was like one of those offers like, hey, are you really sure? Are you guys really sure? And oh, yeah, they were really sure. They said, oh, yeah, he's a no doubt offer. We want him. We're going to go in on him. And then, after he committed, I found out more. What they did when he came to one of the camps, they lined him up against, Power 5 offensive linemen, like 5 reps in a row and had him go over and over and over again. And he won every rep. The rest of the staff was on board. But, this was almost like a personal play for Coach Freeman.
Yeah, I think this guy's a really good player, and I think he's just scratching the surface. And, I think he's the kind of guy, Chris, that goes to Iowa and becomes a 4-year starter and just a dominating, guy that plugs into that system and just becomes a dominating player. I think he's going to be a really good player for Notre Dame. Who we got up next?
Austin Alexander.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with Austin Alexander as this ends up moving along, because a lot of people think he's going to be a defensive end, strong side defensive end. We'll see what happens with him. Is he the kind of pass rusher that you need? I think it all depends on where people slot too. And what happens with Chris Burgess, because I think that's kind of the guy that he's competing for an opportunity for. If they get Burgess, do they take Alexander as well? Certainly a guy who likes Notre Dame a lot. I think he's a good athlete. I wouldn't say he's a great athlete, but I think he's a guy that is also kind of scratching the surface as far as what kind of an athlete he can be. You see him running away from guys here. He can move, but what I don't see a lot of times on film is just the tenacity and bend and just constant pursuit that you want to see as a pass rusher. The ability to turn left and right. Good player, though. Don't get me wrong. If he lands in the class, I think he's a good addition. I'm just not sure he's as explosive as a Viper, and so I think he'll probably end up being a strong side defensive end. Does he have the body to grow into that? I'm not sure. So we'll have to see what happens. What do you know about him?
So he's a kid. He visited multiple times last year, even without an offer. So the interest level was obvious. Notre Dame, when they wanted to see, a couple of games this year, early in the season, they went ahead and pulled the trigger. They got him on campus early in the season. And if you remember, he's a guy, his dad went to Notre Dame. His dad was in the band at Notre Dame. And his uncle is Sean Alexander, longtime Seattle Seahawks running back, great NFL fantasy football player from back in the day, and a former Alabama star. So, but the connection to Notre Dame is obvious, and his interest in Notre Dame is huge.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's a guy that if you're taking another guy, you take him because the upside's really big. It really is. He can be a really good player. Again, he's a guy that's probably going to take 2 years. But once you get 2 years, if he has the tenacity and the mental makeup that you're looking for, he's got the body where he could really develop into a very good quality pass rusher and a good defensive lineman. All right, who we got next?
Well, you were talking about Chris Burgess. Let's check out Chris Burgess.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see where this guy ends up. I do think he's a strong side defensive end. Geez, look at those arms, though, Chris. Look at how long those
arms
arms
look like, Mike.
Yeah, you do. You got the guns like that, too, and the abs, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you got all that. Chris has got, but just the power that this guy plays with. He just plays with huge power, and he's got that lower base. And I get why people are very, very high on him and, want him to be in this class. I wouldn't say he is a elite athlete. I just think he's a good athlete, but he plays with leverage. He plays low. And he's just strong, and he's got those big, long arms that allow him to shed blocks and get into an offensive lineman and rip out of there like he just did there, making that tackle. So I think this guy could be a really good player. There's a reason lots of schools are after him and like really after him. So I'm excited to see what he becomes. Because I think he's just growing into his body. I think he's going to get even taller. I think he's going to definitely get bigger. If you look at his lower body, it's not near as big as you think it would be. It's going to get much bigger, and he's going to be just a dominant, I think, run player for sure. And we'll see about pass rusher, but he just plays so violently. I love his ability and his strength, and I really hope he ends up choosing Notre Dame because I think he's a good player. What do you think on this situation?
Yeah, and remember, this is sophomore film we're looking at right here. So
yeah.
This is a mean sophomore in Chicago.
Yeah.
This kid, he loves Notre Dame. Like
yeah.
he loves visiting Notre Dame. That's one of the things. I mean, it might seem obvious, but the kids that love visiting, they're like, there's something about Notre Dame, whether it's the people, whether it's the mystique, the aura, the atmosphere, whatever it is. When they keep coming back and they want to come back over and over again, those guys are the guys that, there's something about Notre Dame that has him interested. So he's gone out of his way to come back. He's come back in camp when he didn't need to. He came to visit for a game this fall when he had his own game that day earlier, and it was going to be a crazy, drive down. But he wanted to make it. He even wanted to make another game, but it didn't work out. And every time you talk to him after a game, after a Notre Dame visit, he's just enamored. He's over the moon. He's really, really excited. Given everybody else that's recruiting him, he's no lock, but I mean, the interest here is genuine.
Sounds like he's going to announce at the Army All-American game, correct?
Yeah, he's going to be down there. So I think it's January 6th that he's going to announce. And when you have those kind of, set dates, usually if you haven't had your decision already, you're pretty damn close to finalizing it.
You have a pretty good idea where you're going, no question. A lot of guys, they won't do that unless they have a pretty good idea what they're going to do. And you add Burgess to what you have right now, and that's a really good situation. And looking forward to see what happens. Do we have anybody else?
Yeah, we got one more. Damien Shanklin.
Okay. Newer offer. This kid, it's interesting to watch this guy. Plays, fairly solid competition down there. Kind of a CJ May, would like to see a little more pass rush. We don't see a lot of film of him just getting after it as a pass rusher. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that. There's not enough of it for me to say, okay, this is a Viper. I think that's ultimately where he will end up, that type of player. But most of his plays on film are just kind of run defending. You get a few pass rushes and stuff, and you're like, okay, solid. I wouldn't say great, but solid. I want to see more domination, more explosiveness as a pass rusher. And at times you see it on film, but I think a lot of the great pass rushers, they just have that. They can just flat get after it. But again, right there's a very athletic move that he made there. Certainly got around some people and was able to get in there and get to the quarterback and drag him down. So I want to see some more of this guy. It'll be interesting to see where Notre Dame is, especially if Burgess commits, how that changes what they do moving forward. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I think he's a good player. I definitely would be after him as well as Austin Alexander. And I would still keep recruiting guys, even if Burgess commits. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in numbers, because if they get Agboko, that'd be 5 last year. I know that they've been talking about 5 this year, meaning 2025. That may be tough if you take 5, but I still think you got to keep recruiting, because you just don't know who's actually going to enroll. You don't know if somebody gets hurt and you have to move on from that player because he's just not able to be the same type of player. There's just a lot of things that can happen. So even if Notre Dame were to land Burgess, and that would be their 4th commit of this class, I hope Notre Dame continues to recruit. What do you know about this situation, Chris?
Yeah, so this offer, it always felt like an interesting timing to me, and it seemed like a very intentional offer. And what I mean by that is it came in August, like in preseason camp for both schools. It didn't come like for pot of gold or after evaluation periods when waves of offers went out. It was kind of like a standalone offer in August. So that tells me there was something that really caught their eye about it, and they thought that he was a guy they didn't want to wait on. He also has visited multiple times since then, including multiple times this fall. And again, those guys that come for a game and then they turn around and come right back, it always says something. But kind of along the lines of what you said, I know a lot of people have predicted and said, oh, he's going to end up at Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is probably the leader. I think they'd probably take him, but I think there's just too much time and too many other things to play out before saying, oh yeah, he's going to end up at Notre Dame. On both sides, he got a Michigan offer recently. He visited there. He could end up there. Like you mentioned, Notre Dame, they could have other guys and their numbers could change. So while I really, really like where Notre Dame stands with him, I know he likes Notre Dame. I know Notre Dame likes him. It's just going to play out too much for me to say, oh yeah, he's going to end up at Notre Dame.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, that'll be it for this show. Next week, we'll dive into linebackers. We'll dive into defensive backs and go from there. So
sounds good.
Hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll keep doing this. And like I said, after next week's show, we'll be trying to get into the latest film of some of Notre Dame's commits and maybe even some of the guys that aren't committed, but we feel like they have a really good shot at. So, I'm excited to see, we saw some great film from Aeneas Williams, in his last game. I just want to see like full films of the entire year to look at some of these guys. So Chris will be chasing it down, and we'll be talking about that here in the near future. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. If you're not a member of Irish Sports Daily, go to the front page, sign up today, click on the premium section. You can sign up and we can finish out the season. There's a whole lot of recruiting that's going to happen between now and then. And who knows? There's always a lot of exciting news in the offseason. No question about it.